All right. So thank you, Emily, Deanne, and Ala for joining this panel today. And I think the topic of today's discussion is really going to be focused on how to develop students' sense of belonging in the classroom and how important that is, especially in the language classroom where we all feel very sort of vulnerable when we're first learning a language, and also how to create a community that engages and connects students and the community in the classroom. So, and how to empower students with meaningful communicative practice that prepares them for success. So thank you. I know that you all are wonderful teachers and have a lot of great ideas to share. So we're going to start with a question, kind of a general question that as language teachers, we all want to engage students, but you know that some students are a little bit disconnected sometimes, especially coming out of COVID. I think students were very isolated, learning remotely, and so they might have become more disconnected than even before. What can we do to change that? And let's start with you, Emily.
Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, I was going to say, I think the teacher voice does enough. One of the biggest things that I think that is important in developing relationships and making these kids help feel like they belong in a language classroom or really any classroom is lowering that affective filter, which is what we've all heard from day one, right? But I think one of the best ways, there's two main things that I try to do to help them do this. The first one is every day before they come in the door, I ask them a question at the door, typically in the target language, and they're not allowed in until they give me an answer that at least makes sense. I tell them all the time, you can lie to me, it just has to make sense, right? Sometimes it's as simple as a yes or no. Do they understand that that's even what I'm asking them? Sometimes it's a little bit more complex. But that, A, makes everyone speak in the target language every day, so that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. It makes them feel accomplished in that they've answered at least one question correct today, even if they botched the rest of class, right? And it helps them speak more in front of their peers so they're not as afraid to get up and do presentations and things like that. And then the other thing that I do, and it's not as language related at all, but on every quiz or test, for 1% extra credit, I ask them a question in English. They can answer in the target language if they want to, but they also have the ability to answer in English, and it can be something as simple as, well, tell me something that's going on in your life right now, or tell me about the funniest thing that's ever happened to you, or what's your favorite kind of music, to try to connect with them. And I'll typically answer that question too and be like, for me, this is whatever. And it's amazing to see the connections with certain kids that I would have never guessed, listen to the same genre of music as I do, or played the same sports that I did growing up or whatever. And so it's cool to be able to make that connection with them, because then you're like, oh, hey, Sally, like, that's awesome. I did the same thing. And then you can build that. And then they also just want to perform better for you. They feel that sense of belonging.
So for me, I think I try to give mine autonomy, especially since 2020. I felt like when they came back to me, they weren't the same level that they had been before, because Google Translate did a lot of their work for them whenever they were there. So I found myself, especially this year with my upper level students more, I asked them, I let them be autonomous, like what do you guys want to learn? And then I made a note, because I'm horrible with names. But as Ms. Arnold said in her thing, sometimes the experts in the room are your students. So I have let them guide in my level 3 class this year. They have guided my instruction. So I would ask them, what do you feel like you need? Because I realized I would start doing something and they didn't know the basics. So I would ask them, okay, what do we need to know in order to finish this that we started? Where do we need to go back? So there have been a lot of times when I've started, this is where I want to go with them, and they're like, we need to back up a little bit. So I take what I would have done in my level 1 class maybe, and then just level it up a little bit for them so that they do have that base now. And I'm starting to see they're wanting to give me more now. They're not as afraid to try to read a text in French. And they're not as afraid to say stuff, because I try to do the same thing. I try to make connections with them. I want them to know, I tell them this is a safe space. You cannot make fun of anyone for trying to speak. And I will tell them this, you all suck. It's okay when you suck when you speak French. You're supposed to at this level. Because they all come in and they expect 9 months later and the end of French 1, well, I should be fluent. Why am I not fluent? I'm like, I see you for 50 minutes a day. There's no way. So I always tell them it's okay to make mistakes, and I show them that I make mistakes as well. If I don't know something, I admit I don't know it. I will go find out for you, and I'll come back and I'll tell you. And I feel like that is another way that they kind of feel more comfortable with, okay, I don't have to know everything, because I feel like for French especially, you know, the kids that take French usually are the ones who, they took it because it was the harder language. But they're perfectionists. I have a lot of perfectionists, and they feel like if they're not perfect, they can't try. So I always try to show them, or I even sometimes make mistakes on purpose and then correct myself, just so they can see it's okay that you're not perfect.
Yeah, adding to what those beautiful ladies and educators say about how can we engage our students, of course, the first step, I think, from my perspective, and I'm sure you all agree with me, is to study the needs and the environment of our students. You never know. I mean, I came from Palestine in the Middle East in 2016, and to be honest with you, I learned from my students. You know, I used to teach very traditionally back home. This is how I was taught. And I brought this kind of knowledge to the States, and it did not go with their needs at all. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like I failed in the first year in teaching Arabic in my career here in the United States. So it's very important to know where our students are coming from, what do they need to learn, why do they need to learn the language. I'm not going to lie to you. My students are forced to take Arabic. Every time I ask them, why did you choose to learn Arabic, they told me that they never chose to learn the language. They were forced to be in that program for specific criteria. But at the end of the semester, that makes me happy, of course, when I told them if they want to take Arabic too. I mean, the majority raised their hand, so which is great. Also, as Ms. Diane said, it's great to include our students in our lesson planning. For example, let's say we're going to talk about food. I'm going to ask them, what do you think you want to learn about food? What foods you are interested in? What sports you are interested in? So we can include all of the activities that are related to their answers in the instruction, and they're going to be kind of engaged because they could relate to that. We cannot always introduce new things. They're going to get bored because they do not have an immediate connection to the new thing. So we have to kind of include things that the students are interested in. Also, we have to meet most, if not all, the learning styles of our students. For example, I hate writing. I do not like writing. I'm a visual learner. I like to learn through maybe experiencing the knowledge that I learn. I do not like to write about it. I do not like to talk about it. I just like, I gain all the information through touching stuff, listening to stuff. So we have to meet all these learning styles. Also, when it comes to implementing projects, like project-based activities, I always allow my students to choose any form of activity or project that they want to do. I give them the theme, and you know what, guys? Here is the rubric. Just choose any topic you want. If you talk about colors, they could painting, any painting, and describe how did they do it. What did they include in these projects? What are these colors in the target language? Or if somebody wants to create a song, which happened in my first year teaching in Plain County, they create a rap song in Arabic. But let me tell you something. They just put the words, like just words, random words. They do not make sense. But I loved it, really. I do not like rap, I'm sorry, I don't like hip hop, but they made me like it. So just let them be free. Let's be honest, we are the most fun teachers in the school. Yes. Honestly, really, we are the clowns. I mean, I never forget. I mean, thanks to Mr. Patrick, I mean, we always thank Mr. Patrick, but I have to because I will never forget when I was a participant in the Star Talk. We were just in that room, and he just popped in and started speaking German, and we started all laughing. I mean, I had so much fun, and he gave me a lot of confidence to be like him. So yeah, this is how we engage our students.
Those are all great suggestions. So I heard a lot about being curious about your students, being excited to learn more about them, who they are as people, modeling mistakes in the classroom. I think that's brilliant. Showing them that it's okay to not know something and find out, and also being playful with language, and sometimes adjusting our expectations of our students, right? Instead of holding the bar too high, meet them where they are. So those are all great suggestions. So we're talking about creating this sense of belonging in the classroom. What does that look like exactly? What are your goals when you're trying to develop that sense of belonging? What do students who feel that belonging do in the classroom? What do they do out of the classroom? And why is a sense of belonging so important? Who wants to start?
Ladies first.
So I just, as you were saying that, I had a student pop into my head that I was like, oh yeah, you're the winner. Last year, we had a wee bit of a hiccup in Jackson County, and we had a Spanish teacher that left us in March. So, me, the other 3 Spanish teachers, and our French teacher all adopted a Spanish 1 class from her. And so, when we got these kids, they were kind of lost, right? They're, first of all, Spanish 1, so they're lost to begin with, just like swimming in an ocean. And then on top of that, they felt that they didn't get a solid foundation for whatever reason it may be, but it was a little bumpy road for us. And so when we got them in March, it was like, what do we do now, So we did the best. We did the best we could to go back over those basics, those foundations, to at least give them somewhat of a successful entry into Spanish 2. Because y'all know the difference between level 1 and level 2. I imagine most of our languages is astronomically different. And so one of those students that I had, he was really like a clown, he's a class clown. He didn't care. His grade was inflated, so he knew that he wasn't going to fail. It didn't matter what he did, so he would sit there and play computer games all day. He was never really outright disrespectful or anything, but he never volunteered to answer questions. He never put his best foot forward. He just was there. I have him again this year, and I was like, oh God, here we go. See him on the roster. I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. This child, I just want to just hug him. He's just the best. I don't know what has happened. I would like to thank myself a little bit for it, but I'm not sure if that's what it was. But he comes in every day now ready to work. He does our warm-ups, which is never for a grade, but he'll pull it out and he'll do the warm-ups. He volunteers to answer 3 out of 5 of the questions throughout the day. If I ask a question and no one really knows, he's like, well, doesn't that mean that? And doesn't this mean this? And he starts to put it all together. And so I think that a big part of the belonging part is the confidence part. So working with these kids to, like we've been saying, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, that's really the only way you're ever going to learn is through failure, right? And so just giving them the little tiny pieces and building them up and meeting them where they are, and maybe lowering expectations a little bit sometimes. But I think once students, especially students that don't feel confident at all, once they start to get 1, 2, 3, 4 questions where they're like, okay, wait, I think I'm starting to get this. That's when they're more, and then that's your job to jump in and be like, hey, great job, Billy, you're doing so good, whatever. Encourage them in that so that they really feel good. The other thing that I do is we have little Panther cards that we can send home, and it's just a little postcard, and I'll write home and be like, hey, Stuart, you're doing so great in class. I really love the attitude that you're bringing, and your smile really lights up the room. Keep it up, buddy. And I mail it home to mom and dad. And so it's different than getting an email or a phone call, because it's who sends letters anymore, right? So when they get that in the mail, they're like, oh my God, let me throw this up on the fridge. And then the kid comes home and sees it, and he's like, whoa, So I think that little things like that, just helping them feel more confident in the language, even if they're not where they need to be necessarily, is huge in that.
I've had a couple of good successes just with talking about the positive feedback. If they turn something in and something just makes me laugh because it's crazy, I will make sure that I put a note on there that says, you made me laugh today. Thank you. That was a funny thing. We were just doing a big music unit, and one of them, they had to research the cultural references in the song, and the last question was, why do you think Madame King likes this song so much? And his answer was, because she's old and she would like music like that, which is really funny because it's a rap song. And I am an old white lady. But I just thought it was funny. But I told him, you made me laugh today. That was really funny. Like, that made me almost spit out my water. Thank you for that. And this is a kid, he will never speak to me. I've had him for 2 years now. I could not, before about 3 months ago, tell you what his voice sounded like, because he was like that. He wouldn't speak. Genius, though. Like, brilliant kid. But he had that filter. He was still in his silent period. He didn't want to talk. But he would always email me right after class, leave my room, send me a message. Hey, Miss King, can you, dude, you were just right there. But once I started giving him this year, I made it a point. I'm going to speak to him almost every day. I'm going to say something to him. This semester, he started talking to me. I don't get messages from him anymore. If he has a question, now he'll actually answer me. So I say I have like a pet project every year, and it's usually one of my most difficult students. Not that he was difficult, he was in his little turtle shell, and I needed him out of his shell. So I always pick one or two, and even if it's as soon as I give individual assignments, I go and I sit right next to them, and we're going to work through this thing. Usually that's the ones who are not working so much, but we'll work through it together, and we'll do whatever we can. But yeah, I think just getting to know them, and I've never had classroom management problems, and I've always had admin come and say, can you talk to so-and-so about their classroom management? And honestly, I don't know what tips to give them other than you just have to get to know them, make them feel comfortable around you, and make them realize you actually care about them as people, and then they'll do whatever you want them to do. They'll, in some form, it may not be great, but they'll attempt it.
And actually emphasizing on what has been said about making a mistake and how we must actually encourage our students to make mistakes. I have a small activity I want to do with you guys. So I need 2, 3 participants. Mr. Patrick and Miss Christy. So basically, let's assume we are the students. You can sit here if you want. So we're going to play this activity or game. It's called like We Made a Mistake. So the rest of the educators, please, you're going to be participants too by listening and see if we make a mistake. If we make a mistake, or actually when we make a mistake, all of you have to try to figure out what's the mistake, and all of you have to say, we've made a mistake. Okay? Does this make sense? Like, we're going to go with the days of the week. 3 of us, we're going to go say, okay, for example, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Keep going this way. Of course, this is going to be a repetition, which means we are introducing vocabulary, right, for the students. And the rest of the students will practice their listening skills by trying to find out if there is a mistake that occurred. Does this make sense? Yeah. So when you hear a mistake, somebody missed a day, all of you say, we have made a mistake. You're going to be the judge. Okay? You ready, Mr. Patrick, Miss Christy? I'm going to start with me. Okay.
Are we doing this in English?
In English.
Just one question.
So, in English, no pause and no mistakes. Just try. Saturday.
Sunday.
Monday.
Tuesday.
Wednesday.
Friday.
We made
Okay, again. We're going to do it again. Saturday.
Monday.
Tuesday.
I mean, look at the giggle. I'm sure you guys, if I had a class, you're going to come next day. So this is one activity about how we could encourage making mistakes among our students, as well as to include their cultures, of course. Because, again, when I came here to the States, I cried. I want to go home. I mean, here is better, of course, politically and economically, all of that. But it's because of the culture, so I could not relate. I could not find somebody who could I talk to about specific things, or maybe listening to Arabic music with somebody, or go to, an Arabic dance club, So we have to give the students opportunity to teach us about their cultures, even if you talk about, again, let's say, going back to the colors, because I'm teaching colors now. So they could just ask them our geography. You can ask them to introduce their flag, or a specific, the city that you love, they miss back home, and talk about it. Where is it located in the map? Show us all of that. Also, there's another activity I'm going to play with you right now while I'm sitting, of course. So it's called Where I Am From. So I could say, for example, where I'm from, we have 3 religions. Mr. Patrick would say, where I'm from,
We have one stoplight.
where I am from,
You have green trees.
here we go. They talk about their culture and we get to know each other as well. And this way we could create a good community in the classroom. It's simple. You could use any language, even if it's English, just the first week, or maybe when you teach them these kind of vocabulary, you can let them use the target language by introducing where I'm from, where I'm from. So this is a repetition of kind of where I'm from. So you're going to learn that kind of specific phrase in the target language because you keep repeating the same phrase. So also make a connection. And honestly, I learned a lot from my students. I always tell them, guys, it's a mutual benefit. I teach you Arabic, teach me English. I have an accent. I cannot do the English R still. I cannot say water. It's hard for me to say it. But they teach me. They really corrected me many times. I keep thanking them. And also like the connection, when I talk about connection, for example, the food, I never thought that falafel, it's cultural product of my culture, it tastes like the hush puppies. I never know that. I went to something called Capital D or Capital
Captain D's.
and I tried them. I was like, actually, they taste like falafels. so yeah, let's make this connection when you introduce something from the target culture, if it's cultural practice or a product, make a connection. This tastes, the shawarma tastes like the gyro, I think we call it gyro. So make these connections. Ask them, what do you think this tastes like? Stuff like that. So yeah, this is a good kind of idea to make students kind of feel so motivated to come to your class. But sometimes we fail. We know that, right? We fail sometimes. But yeah, most of the time we could get them so involved in the target language and culture.
Those are great suggestions. And I also love the idea of you might fail the first time, but as teachers, you refine your lesson plans every year and you see what works with students. And it doesn't always work with every group of students, but you get better at it as time goes on. So I'll thank you for sharing those very practical examples and giving that demonstration. What about Emily and Deanne? Do you have some activities that you'd like to share, things that you've implemented in your classrooms that have connected students and given them a sense of belonging? And I'm going to combine another question because I know we talked a little bit about project-based learning as well. So if you could describe some of those project-based ideas as well. We have about 4 more minutes and then we're going to go to Q&A.
Okay. So every year for the past, 5 or 6 years, I've been doing Mani Musical for Spanish. It's
Locura de Marzo.
that. I did Spanish, but it's been a while. Although it came back when I had to teach ESOL for a while. I got better, and now it's gone again. But so this year I decided to take it a little bit further because I had my level 3s that I didn't have actually in level 1 because I was new to the school. So I thought I'm going to try this a little bit differently. So because I'm old, obviously. I'm on the Facebook, as the kids say. So there's a Facebook group, though, that's for this. And they just share because we're language teachers. I feel like we always feel the need to share or, because especially for some of the not Spanish teachers, sometimes we're the only person in the building that teaches our language. So I got a lot of ideas from them, and some of them I tweaked, but my entire March, my lesson was this Mani Musical. So we didn't just listen to the song, because what I would normally do, we would have the song, they would vote on it, a song would win, and by the end we'd get a winner, just like the bracket for the basketball. But this year I decided I'm going to go a little bit further. We're going to research some of the cultural references that are there. We're going to actually learn some of the vocab that's in the songs. We're going to learn about the artists and the history behind it. And one of them was the kora, which is an instrument from West Africa. And I really delved into that, and we really got to learn about it. And it was really cool because now I have kids come up saying, Miss King, I saw this thing the other day about the kora. I'm like, yes. Because it's one of those things, once you mention it, and half their phones are probably listening to me in class, so then it's going to start showing them on their phone. But I got so much more buy-in this year. And then at the end, we did what these teachers called a smash doodle, where they had to write and speak in the language, and they had to write about the song in the language and pick out key vocabulary and give their opinions of it. And then they got to, if they're an artist, they got to draw. You know, if they're not like me, it's a stick figure, but that's okay. But it was really cool because I got the most participation from them, and they really got to choose. I mean, I gave them the 16 songs, but they chose their favorite that they wanted to do. But I have a lot of them now coming up to me and saying, Ms. King, this is now on my playlist. Can we also listen to this one by this artist? And they're like, I don't know if you really want to know about it. I was like, are you kidding? That means my plan, you know, my evil plan worked. Ha ha ha. You're listening to French music now when you don't have to. But it was really cool. I also do, I'm kind of the same way. I've steered away the past, I don't know, 8-10 years or so. I don't do tests anymore. It's always project. I'm very project based, so we learn everything we need to learn, and then I'm kind of the same way. Sometimes if we're running out of time, I give them more specific things that they need to do for me, but it's usually, here's what we learned. I need so much of whatever of each of them. Find a way to give it to me. I don't care what it is. So if we're learning about the town, do an online virtual town for me, or go to a town and then describe what's in the town, or, you know, describe our own town, whatever, however, some of them make their own. But I feel like that also gives them a sense of ownership, and they can show to me, they prove to me that they learned something, and it's not a set list of words that I gave them, and if they don't get it, you don't get it. It's not a gotcha. They show me what they learned, because really, do I need them to know every single word that was in the vocab for that unit? No, because I don't necessarily know, because I'm still one of the ones, if I'm in France, I'm going to think for a minute, what do I need to say to this person whenever I go ask for whatever I need to ask for. So I'm very much on board with the let them choose their own project kind of thing.
So then to piggyback on that, I also do Locura de Marceau, which is like the March Music Madness bracket, whatever. And similar to Ms. King, I do a lot of like the break it down. We talk about the cultural aspects, you know. I have them guess based on like the accents, because they'll start to pick up on some of the accents and things, you know, what region or what country do you think they're from and things like that. And then also, I don't know if they have this for any other language, but any Spanish people out there, I also do Navidad Madness. And there's somebody that puts together brackets of Christmas commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's the same concept, which is really cool. And that one's fun because there is a lot more cultural, they get to see it, they get to experience it, we get to talk about like real life comparisons between, like, y'all know we've seen commercials before that at the end it's like, oh, this was a commercial for an Apple company. And you're like, but there was no apples, I'm very confused. Like, how did this work out? So we talk about some of like the marketing strategies and how they think they got there and why they got there and all those things. So that's a good one. And then as far as like the project-based everything, I think that they've pretty much echoed pretty well the idea of voice and choice, and give them a skeletal outline of, hey, look, you know, we're studying the preterite right now, so make sure that you write this in the preterite and make sure that you use, you know, this theme of vocabulary, but like go run with it. And typically I think I've gotten much better results from doing that as opposed to being like, okay, give me 10 verbs in the preterite, make sure 6 of them are irregular and that you use 4 nouns from our vocab, right? Because then they think that that's all they have to do. Whereas if they don't really have that limit, they get frustrated. And they're like, well, how I don't understand how much. I'm like, just as much as you think. It's my favorite line. Whatever you think, you know? And so typically they panic, so they do way more than they would have done in the first place had you given them a cap on it. So.
And they tend to have more fun, like you were saying. We're the fun group.
Yeah.
You are a fun group. Thank you. And we're going to turn it over to you all. What questions do you have for our panel?
I don't need my.
Okay. One of us.
Because birthday, I always sing birthday in French for my student. Happy birthday. So today is joyeux anniversaire for everyone who's here. Good. Because we're meeting, it's the first time for most of us. So everyone, joyeux anniversaire. So I believe I would like to insist on one thing that is important, that is like the standard in traditional education and what kind of flexibility we can have nowadays. So we can just kick out everything and say, oh, because the kid need that, they need that, we should be like allowing anything we can bring into education. Because if we do like that, I believe we will need maybe to have 5 students per class. It will work. When we have 20 or even 10, it won't work. It won't work. Specifically, like, I insist because due to pandemic, I'm also doing for testing kind of project based, or how you call it, also PBA.
Yeah, project-based learning.
Yes, for testing, but at the same time also, these kids need to take, because from the beginning, my kid in where I teach, they don't like to take tests. And in my syllabus, I want them to have, and the parents they sign to have notebook, and I grade that notebook because I believe that they have kind of something to rely on to study, to do homework. And if you don't have those traditional things, they will not do it. And at the end of the day, I believe it will be just the 5% that really smart, that can reach somewhere with the language skill. So I believe when we have to balance between the traditional and what we can add to make things fun. And to finish, for myself, my experience, like I'm not saying that it's because I'm the star teacher or the junior, but I believe maybe I'm the only one French teacher in my school. I have a lot of students that will come to me every morning to grade current or past that who are not taking any more French. At the same time, this fun thing or this interest bringing also the revers of the medaille, like the setback of this fun teacher. Like have disciplinary issue, like last Friday, I wrote up like 5 students in one day, something I never did in my teaching life. So I don't know, there is no miracle solution, but we need to be mindful of flexibility or also what we should do. I believe that you still have things to advise me on that. Thank you.
I agree with you. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say where you're headed. I kind of walked into some extremes like that and walked into the middle at my new school this year where apparently they had a teacher, I don't think he teaches Latin anymore though, very, very knowledgeable of Latin, but they literally were playing with swords in the field, pretending to be gladiators, having a great time, having the time of their lives and doing 0 Latin grammar. And so I got them later, and I have kids in Latin 4 who have a couple of 2 issues that they need to review. And I see what you mean, because then when you go in the other direction of all grammar, now it's like, okay, we know a lot of stuff, and there's no real experiential aspect to any of this, And so I see where you're headed. It's tough. You're right. I mean, it's a balancing. I just wanted to kind of speak to that from, just kind of seeing the result, especially because I wasn't there for that. But now that I hear from the kids, I see why they had a great time. And they're real mature at my school. They get the big picture. They're like, yeah, he was really fun, but I don't remember what conjugation that represents. So, or whatever, but I see what you mean. It's tough.
And also I agree with you in terms of balancing. Yes, I'm not saying like me personally, again, I'm coming from traditional, school, and I came here trying to implement this in my classroom. I could. It was kind of, okay, good instruction, but were the students engaged? Not all the time. Because I cannot teach grammar as an independent lesson. We could always, that's what we call it, comprehensible input. You can just teach the students through through your instruction, the grammar structure, you could maybe put all the conjugations in sentence, and you ask the students, what did you notice about this highlighted word? Why does it end with ed? Why this one does not end with ed? Why do you think? So you can teach them how to be critical thinkers. They can be like independent learners. You don't have to give them everything on a plate of silver. You have to, for example, I teach like Arabic, 1 hour and 30 minutes each class, but quite honestly, when I teach them like the content, I teach them just maybe maximum 20 minutes, then I work with them and let them teach themselves and practice whatever they learn through that 20 minutes, so they can have a very deep grasp of what I teach them. Again, I'm with you, I understand what you mean by traditional, but I'm talking about in my case, I cannot just teach, again, talking about grammar specifically independently as a lesson. I mean, I can, but I do not advise. This is my personal perspective, by the way.
So I am more on the traditional side, so I typically do throw the grammar at them. But then we do a lot of the implementation and and one of the things that I do is I make it available to my students. I have what I call cheat sheets, and I have spent hours of my life, but I have one for present tense, and I have one for preterite and future and present perfect and all of the grammar tenses, and it goes through all of the irregulars and the patterns and when to use them and what they look like in English, what they look like in Spanish. So for my kids that really do seek that, like, I need it on paper in front of my face so that I can try to memorize it before I can apply it, I make that available to them if they choose to have it. So I don't give it to every kid, I don't go through it that detailed with every student, but then that way, and especially once I get my higher level kids, some of them seek that structure. So that's always a good kind of backup to have some sort of just like, hey, boom, here it is all on paper if you want to stare at it for a while, you know.
Great suggestions. I see another question.
My name is Pearl. I'm from Westminster with my colleague Zeke Oyes, the Global Program Director. First, thanks to Georgia State for such a great opportunity. So I'm so glad to come here. And my question is for Ala. So before today, I didn't know any Arabic. Until now, still don't know, okay, because you didn't teach us. But you did teach us two interesting games, so I would like to use that for my class. And I feel so interesting to be a student in your class, so I'm starting interesting to learn some Arabic today. I have a question. You mentioned about some topics you taught that you could let students choose different form to do the assignment. For example, making a song or do a painting or something. I want to know, is that the part of your academic grading, or how do you grade for this kind of assignment? And do you have a rubric, or you put on part of your culture, category? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your interest. You give me a good push. I don't know, Diana, do you attach the resource?
Yes, it's in that
whole lesson plan from top to bottom. It's all activities, all of it, activities. How you can introduce vocabulary. Anyway, going back to your question about projects, of course, I always, when it comes to projects, basically the not final test. It's like the unit test, but I don't give tests at all, except for specific times when the students sometimes misbehave. I say, okay, you know what? Let's do a test. You don't like it. So it's like a punishment. Yeah, of course, I provide a rubric, but I do not include in my rubric you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I grade just the creativity of the project, the language use, and if it is applicable in classroom environment. Like I asked them to, for example, create something. I could maybe use it as a resource because let's be honest, Arabic, Latin, I know what other language that we lack resources. I create my own material. It's hard sometimes. Sometimes it's so discouraging. So sometimes I'll let my students create the resources for me. So this is amazing, it's again mutual benefit. I grade them for language use when they go and present. So yeah, you could just play with the rubric, of course, and of course we have to be flexible. It's not like something. Again, we are the fun teachers here. You have to be so flexible.
I also keep exemplary, like if I have one that's really, really good, and I also keep one that's not so great. Every year I'll ask my students, do you mind if I keep yours? Do you mind if I keep yours? They never know if it's the great one or the bad one, but I will also give them, this is what I'm sort of expecting. This one goes beyond, and this is not, don't do this. And then they can see. But I like the projects because if they don't hit it, sorry, I just thought about this. You can let them go back and add to. I never say that was your one shot and that's it. If they want to go back and they want to add, they're more than welcome to go back and show me more because maybe they had a rough night. Maybe they had a soccer game the night before and it didn't get over until 11 o'clock at night. So not that I only give them one day, but I've learned I cannot control what goes on right outside of my classroom, and a lot of times I just want to cry with what goes on outside of my classroom. So I always let them redo anything or add to, or I don't ever correct their mistakes. I just highlight, and then they have the opportunity. Even the ones who did really well, I'll just highlight their mistakes, and they can go back and try to figure it out and fix it on their own because then they are learning. I'm not just telling it to them.
It's such a great point, because
Yeah.
students, they have a lot of, off-campus, activities sometimes, they
Right.
go to for play a game for school, and they did not even have enough time to do that.
Yeah.
But that's really important to make the connection, to understand what.
And I want to make your wish come true. So listen carefully. مرحبا اسمي علاء.
Marhaba.
اسمي علاء.
Oh, it's me, Allah.
Okay.
It's, okay, oh. Oh.
Okay, again. Go again. مرحبا اسمي علاء.
Okay, Allah, it's me, Allah.
And here we go. Good job.
We now know Arabic. So thank you to our wonderful panelists. I think we're going to have to, you can ask a question during the break maybe. But thank you, Ala, Deanne, and Emily for your expertise and sharing with us all of your ideas. And we're going to take a 6-minute break, be back here at 10 after, and join the next session about teacher self-care. Thank you.